In CK3, the normal way to play is to stay where you spawn and conquer land until you grow out bigger and bigger. But not as a Viking. Today I'm going to take on the Varangian Adventure, a Casus Belli that allows me to migrate all the way to Egypt and turn it into a kingdom of its own, with a custom faith that potentially brings in unlimited amounts of money. Chieftain Knut Pyramid Eye has been intrigued by tales from travelers about far-off lands with fertile soil and eternal summer. This land is none other than the land of Egypt. He yearned to live in Egypt and knew that a Varangian adventure was the path he must take. However, this would not be a simple undertaking, as Egypt was far beyond his diplomatic reach. He'd have to conquer neighboring lands, forming a chain of territories leading him closer and closer to Egypt. Knut's skills are kinda good. Having the lustful trait will make getting offspring easier, while wrathful fuels his martial abilities and is also virtuous by the Asatru faith. And additionally, ambitious is just a great trait by itself. The first thing he does is get the Bellum Justum trait from the martial lifestyle. This makes starting wars 50% cheaper, which is certainly going to help in the upcoming wars. Then he went on medieval Tinder and picked a wife which also had the lustful trait. And amazing skills for a 16-year-old, just look at it. Welcome to our quest to Egypt, Dalla. After Knut fires his awful marshal, he appoints Styrbjorn, who was only just a little bit better, but he needs all the help he can get. I also get 2 concubines because we're going to need the children for alliances. Our 555 troops aren't going to do it. Normally my advice would be to always put your steward on increasing development, because that will increase your profits in the long run. But since Knut is going to move out of the cold north, increasing development here would be a waste. So steward, just keep collecting taxes for us please. My initial plan was to head out to conquer Leon as the first colony on the way to Egypt, because it's a small and independent realm. But it was still out of diplomatic range, so I set my sights on Cornwall. To fund this crazy war campaign, Knut needs a good sum of money. So he appoints some good champions and starts to raid his neighbors, which went pretty okay and netted us around 80 gold. He also organized a feast for more prestige, which we, because we're tribals, can use to hire more men-at-arms. And we hire some Huscarls. Okay. And with Holgeir as our new crazy strong commander, the army quality was now 3 points. And it's time to head to Cornwall. But Cornwall now has an alliance and is no longer an option. They already had an alliance, you moron. So let's just take Gwent instead, with only 480 troops and no allies. Easy win. Knut is happy, and to celebrate the victory he sends out his standing army to raid our new neighbors. He also erects a runestone, leaving its marking Gwent before we leave for good. The next county to take though is going to be a bit harder. We can only conquest coastal realms, and right now there are only big realms around. So this seems the right moment to take on Leon, which is now within our diplomatic range. To be able to do that we need an alliance, so I decide to sell off one of Knut's daughters for an alliance. Oh yeah, he has 2 daughters, forgot to tell you that. Sand and Kopesh. You know, names that will really blend in when they get to Egypt. I scroll through the marriage options and take a shitty alliance because I forgot to turn off the lustful filter. Sorry, Sand. With the alliance in the pocket we go for Leon. Easy win again. Knut is getting closer and closer to be able to venture to the mystical lands of Egypt. He picks a martial education point and sets his sights on Majorca, on the other side of the Iberian Peninsula. This is going to be our next conquest target. Majorca also has no allies and should be an easy win. Wow, this is a lot easier than I expected. The next target should be the last one in the string of counties to reach Egypt with a Varangian adventure. And this last target is Salerno.
Salerno.
A single county in the boot of Italy. We raise the armies in Majorca and head out to Salerno to steamroll Prince Galfier's troops. We capture his heir during the siege and like that, win the war. And the county of Salerno is ours. Like a gift from the heavens, Knut's first son and heir was born right at the moment the war was solved. And he gets a fitting name, Pharaoh. Finally, after years of preparation and waging wars, Knut can taste his final destination, Egypt. He is now able to reach it with the Varangian Adventure and can take the Duchy of Cairo, the pyramids lying within its borders between the eternal sands. But Knut's military force wasn't strong enough to get there yet. He needed more alliances. And this is where I found out I still have the lustful filter checked. So I turn it off. I break the betrothal of Sand and get her into a better marriage with a Norse mercenary. Well, better for me at least. Knut starts learning the Arabic language just before starting the war for the Varangian Adventure. New home, here we come. This fight sure wasn't easy. The enemy has a bigger army than we do and our allies are kinda dumb. But after 3 years of waging wars, the battle was won. Knut did it. He created a path to reach Egypt all the way from Scandinavia and seized it for himself. By using the Varangian Adventure Casus Belli, he now gets the Duchy of Cairo, along with 400 gold, the adventurer trait and 150 fame. He says goodbye to his old vassals, but trades them in for everlasting summer. The first thing he did as an Egyptian lord is accept the local traditions through a decision. For only 300 prestige we can convert to the Islamic faith and become of the Egyptian culture. So that's what we do, because we don't want to make the locals even more angry than they already are. Although Knut won the war and is now lord in Egypt ruling over the pyramids, his goal wasn't reached yet. He still needed to create his own faith, which honors the pyramids and makes him endless amounts of money. The fresh ruler of Cairo has some important stuff to take care of at the start of his reign. First, his former Norse allies cut ties with him, so he has no more alliances. He can also no longer have concubines, but the Islamic faith does allow for multiple wives. What even is the difference? I decide to marry off one of my daughters for an alliance, just to be a bit more safe in these new hostile lands. And now it is time to slowly grow and take Egypt. So I set my mufti to work and fabricate claims all over Egypt. Knut felt the entire Middle East breathing down his neck. For to be safe around these areas, he decides to swear fealty to the Sultan Ahmad of the Tulunid Sultanate, which is essentially all of Egypt. This is going to make it a lot easier to wage war and claim lands, as we can now attack individual vassals instead of the top liege. It's also time to invest some money into Giza. We'll be staying here for a while, so might as well. Apparently we can still raise runestones, even as a Muslim. Let's just place it next to the pyramids and spice things up. Somehow I have an 18-year-old female prisoner. I negotiate her release and force her to join us. And I marry her off and get a sick spy master. I'm the worst. This marriage reminds me that I have to take good care of my vassals and courtiers. So I find them all new, juicy Middle Eastern wives. There's a reason they all love good old Knut. Then our liege lost the war with the neighboring Abbasid Empire, and we are now integrated into that empire. Not sure that's a good thing or not. The dynasty levels up and I pick the warfare trait, increasing the knight effectiveness and prowess of all dynasty members. Knut is going to need it because the rest of his life consists of fabricating claims, waging war, rinse and repeat. By the end of his life, he accumulated a pretty substantial amount of the Kingdom of Egypt. Still, it wasn't enough to claim the title from his liege. While planning out the next war target, Knut died and his son Pharaoh took over the reins. It was now up to Pharaoh to unify Egypt under their dynasty and create a new faith that would be able to keep the dynasty fed and wealthy for generations to come. Pharaoh's skills were, not that good at all. But he has very good learning skills, which is going to make the faith creation part a breeze. However, he was a theologian and not a conqueror like his father, which was going to make taking the rest of Egypt no easy task. He isn't the youngest one either, so he also has to make a bit of haste. The first thing he has to do is take the Duchy of Delta back under his control, since it is inherited by his brother. The Muslim faith doesn't care for kinslayers, so let's just say we ended him rightly and got back the Duchy of Delta. After the war for Siwa, the realm of Cairo is really taking shape. It's mostly sand though, but it sure does look a lot bigger now. Pharaoh gains the theologian trait and changes his lifestyle to intrigue focus. See, to create your own faith and become head of the faith yourself, I thought you needed to become an independent ruler. Otherwise, your liege becomes the head of faith and we don't want that. To become independent, Pharaoh needs to persuade his fellow vassals into joining a dissolution faction, which will totally break the empire apart. And what better way to persuade people than using fabricated lies? A few fabricated hooks later, Pharaoh decides to kill his liege. Just for fun, actually. And that was the worst idea ever. With the Caliph dead, his land is divided between his sons, and one of his sons got the Kingdom of Egypt. With him being our liege now instead of the emperor, we can no longer dissolve the empire. So we have to find out another way to create our faith. Why am I stupid? Then our mufti manages to create a claim on the whole duchy of Al-Wahad. If we manage to take that, we finally have more than 50% of Egypt and claim the title and become king ourselves. Pharaoh sends his men to war and wins the battle for Al-Wahad, and now owns the most of Egypt. But alas, claiming the liege's title costs far too much prestige. However, he just asked us to be his spy master. Why do they keep doing that? We can easily kill him and claim the title from his heir, which shouldn't be that expensive because he's just a kid. And it wasn't, only 1150 prestige. What a bargain. With the claim on the crown of Egypt in his pocket, Pharaoh now declares war on his liege. Finally, father's dream will now become reality. The freshly appointed young sultan hasn't ever fought a war, and he had no time to prepare. Within moments, Pharaoh besieges 3 counties and is able to enforce his demands. Pharaoh is now officially Sultan of Egypt. He finally did it. All he has to do now is create a new faith. And Pharaoh found out that you don't actually have to be an independent ruler to make yourself head of faith. You just have to change the faith type. And that is the first thing as he did as fresh Pharaoh of Egypt. He changed the Muslim faith into Pyramidism. That's right, Pyramidism. Giving it the communion tenet and changing it from a Sunni faith into a Shia faith. Adding communion meant that all the followers of Pyramidism could now seek indulgences from their head of faith, which is us. Thank you Catholicism for this great inspiration. How to get rich 101. And this is how Chieftain Canute embarked on his Varangian adventure, conquering neighboring territories and forming a chain of counties leading him closer and closer to Egypt. Though Canute passed away, his son Pharaoh continued the legacy and eventually became Sultan of Egypt. Who knows what faith has in store for Pharaoh and his dynasty? Will he actually be able to use his faith to become rich? We might never find out. Or do we? By the way, check out the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.